I sa nama je tu Alimom Alijev koji je došao iz Kijeva. On je, evo ga, od prvog dana agresije na Krim započeo zapravo organizirao je SOS Krimea i dalje se bavi se pravima krimskih Tatara koji su eto dio, sad zadnje što smo čitali, tako da su masovno mobilizirani isto oni koji su na okupiranom, privremeno okupiranom području masivno mobilizirani u rusku vojsku. Eto sad, evo ga, trenutno je rekao Alim da je bilo, evo sad, jutros je već 5 gradova napadnuto u Ukrajini, on u svom stanu u Kijevu nema struje, nema čak evo nemaju ni vode, eto tako, znači da situacija je jako loša, ali eto za 2 dana će biti tu isto on gost krimske platforme, eto to će biti za 2 dana, to je jedan projekt međunarodni i to isto za pomoć Ukrajini i situaciji. Sad ja bi prije nego što dam mikrofon Alimu, još bi predstavio i Sinišu Matasovića, on je tu isto s nama, književnik koji ima već dugo radi na objavljivanju ukrajinskih autora i prije rata i prije svega, eto ta poveznica stoji između društva književnika i ukrajinske književnosti, ali eto i sada su povezani i tako pokušavamo, mi ćemo isto objaviti uskoro jednu knjigu, sad je pred tisak, ukrajinski pjesnički ljetopis, Alla Tatarenko, ona će se priključiti za nekih pola sata preko video linka i onda će nešto reći o situaciji u glavu, ali isto o ovom projektu što radimo zajedno i o nekoj percepciji, recimo, ukrajinske književnosti sada u Hrvatskoj. Eto, znači prije svega sad ću se prebaciti onda na engleski, pa ćemo sad vam razgovarati na engleskom jeziku i evo kasnije ćemo razgovarati o ovim našim projektima, ali to je jako bitno iz prve ruke da vidimo evo što se trenutno događa, a isto je malo se kod nas zna o krimskim Tatarima, njihove povijesti i sve što prolaze sada. So Alim, welcome to Zagreb, to Croatia. We first met, I think it was like 2017 in Lvov. There was the PEN Congress, and then there was a concert of Crimean Tatars, and you were an organizer of the concert. So you were also a cultural worker. You organized the concerts and arts and so on. But you are also whole day involved in protecting the Crimean Tatars. And from the first day of the invasion on Crimea, you have started the SOS Crimea, and then you are just going on with it. And so I would like to ask you to share with us how it was and what is it and how it is now with Crimean Tatars in Ukraine.
Thank you. Thank you, Tomica. Good morning, dear friends, dear participants. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's my first time in Zagreb. I'm originally from Crimea. I'm Crimean Tatar, and Crimea also. The climate and landscape of Crimea, it's similar with landscape of Croatia and Zagreb also. That's why I come here and feeling like a wind from the home. First of all, greetings from free and unbreakable Kiev. I just come from the city, and for me, the reason why I come to Zagreb is the first parliamentary summit of Crimean platform that will start on Monday here, and it's a lot of thank you for your authorities, your people that you invited this summit here. My background is my life divided into two parts. First part, it's before 2013 and after 2013. Before Revolution of Dignity and after. Because in 2014, when the Crimea, when Russia started to occupy Crimea, me and two my good friends, we organized Crimea Sales Established organization that informed with the situation in the peninsula, what is happening, what Russian troops doing in Crimea, etc., etc., etc. And you know, now Ukraine is living during 7 months in full-scale invasion. But the war in Ukraine started in 2014 from the occupation of Crimea. And today, for human rights defenders, just fixed more than 3,000 cases of human rights violations. And it's very different cases, from the violations on religion ground, of national ground, to violations of freedom of speech. But it's only a tip of iceberg. In the ground of this iceberg, we have a new colonization of Crimea by Russia. And what it means, I just briefly explain in such few dimensions and few directions. First direction is the militarization of peninsula. During this last 8.5 years, dozens of regular army weapons, new forms and new troops comes from Russia to Crimea. And it means that only from these 7 months, more than 800 bombs and rockets were shelled from Crimean Peninsula to another part of Ukraine. But militarization, it's also about the militarization of consciousness. It means that from the childhood, from the child garden, from the schools, Russian authorities trying to militarize children. For example, to organize in the schools young army. It's a paramilitaristic organization that trying to send the messages of war and great power of Russia. And also such organizations trying to build relationship between people only in military way. One more, it's about so-called changing identity. I'm Crimean Tatar. I'm not ethnically Ukrainian, and Crimean Tatars were indigenous people of Ukraine. We are Muslims, we are a Turkic group, but all of our process of started in Ukraine in 13th century in Crimean Peninsula. But it also means today that Russians try to destroy tangible and intangible cultural heritage that does not fit into Kremlin propaganda. For example, one of the main, I say that it's the main cultural object of Crimean Tatar culture, Khan Palace in Bakhchisarai, was destroyed under guise of restoration. Yeah, and Russians trying to destroy also another Crimean Tatar cultural objects and also Ukrainian objects on the peninsula. But also when we say it about changing identity, we saying about manipulating of historical narratives and trying to show that Crimea it's historically part of Russia, but it's not true. Yeah, and I will say it a little bit more later. But when we say it about identity, we say it about language. For example, Crimean Tatar language is one of the vanishing languages in the world according to UNESCO list. And it means that today only 3% of all of pupils in Crimea can learn Crimean Tatar language. And families, parents trying to preserve language and organize, at houses some language clubs for their own children. And it's important for us. But if we say about Ukrainian language, today we haven't any Ukrainian school in Crimea. Before the occupation, it was the 7th school. In addition, Russian authorities trying to build collective simulacrums that name Crimea people. By analogy with the Soviet one, in Soviet times said Soviet people or Soviet human, советский человек, советский народ. And it means that it's an opposite for the strong national identities of Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars. One more, it's about population replacement. During these 8.5 years, more than 50,000 people left Crimea, and it was a brain drain because Crimea left students, young professionals, artists, journalists, political leaders, or NGO activists and business person. But we have another tendency when today Crimea colonized by the people from by Russians from Russian side, and minimum 500,000 of new citizens comes to Crimea. And when I say it about this, it means that it was several attempts to colonize Crimea, from the first annexation of Crimea by Catherine II in 18th century. I just give two numbers for you. 95% of all of population in Crimea before annexation by Catherine II were Crimean Tatars. Now it's falling on only 15% of all of population in Crimea. And it means of changing ethnically comparison and religion comparison in Crimea.
Excuse me, I didn't understand you.
Yeah.
Catherine the Great? She wanted to Tatars to come or to go?
Go, of course. Yeah, because before annexation by Catherine II, 95%, and after...
She wanted the Russians to come to Crimea.
Yeah.
It's like Tibet. You put 1 million Han Chinese people and there are no Tibetans.
Yeah, and now we have this first migration after first annexation. After we have in 1944 Stalin's deportation of Crimean Tatars, when all of the Crimean Tatar people were deported to Siberia, to Central Asia. I was born, for example, in Uzbekistan because my grandparents were deported to Uzbekistan. And now we have this third huge attempt of trying from the process of repressions that indigenous people just living peninsula.
Then Catherine wasn't so great as they said.
Yeah, that's why I never say this. It's also a Russian historical narrative about great, besides that Catherine II.
Catherine the Terrible.
Yeah. And one more, and last but not least, it's about institutions. About media, for example. Before occupation, we have a lot of diversity, independent media. In 2014-15, most of them just moved to Kiev, and now Russian authorities trying to establish, for example, Crimean Tatar or Ukrainian media, and Crimean Tatar or Ukrainian language that just spread Kremlin's propaganda in these languages. And for among Crimean Tatars, it's not popular, but these 5 years in Crimea we have grassroots initiatives, also media initiatives that trying to cover topics of political prisoners, topics of culture, of society, but a lot of the journalists and political activists are imprisoned now. For example, this book, the name of this book is Crimea 5 AM. It's texts, it's a play by Ukrainian playwriters Natalia Vorozhbit and Anastasia Kosady, about 11 political prisoners, civil journalists who imprisoned now, about their life, about their families, about their thoughts, values, etc., etc., etc. And my just last sentence, it will be about Ukraine at whole and about this war, because I believe that this war is not only war of Ukrainians or Crimean Tatars. It's not only our challenge; it's a challenge for Europe, because we have a war of values, Europe and anti-Europe values. Yeah, but today when I said about colonization of Crimea, this colonization now started in another new occupied territories of Kherson region, Zaporizhia region, Donetsk, Lugansk, of course, region also. And I hope that we haven't any another choice. We should fight, and we should build our country, because in another way Ukraine does not exist and Ukrainians does not exist, because it's first of all about our identity. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask also the Siniša. Can you say something about your work, your connection with Ukraine authors, and how you have published before and before the war and everything? There was this friendship with Ukrainian authors, and especially now when they are repelled from the solidarity with our colleagues, with our friends, with all Ukrainian people. Can you say about your work a little bit?
Yes, of course. I think most people in the audience in Croatia already know about some project that we work. One of the biggest, for sure, was this two-number of magazine Alternator. It's Ukrainian-Croatian edition on both language. We have 18 poets from Ukraine and 13 novelists or prose authors. And as I say, it's on both language. We have also some other interest text inside, and the whole project started before this new invasion. This year we have a 2-year preparation for all the publishing and everything, and when after all magazine came on the light of the day, it was just a few weeks after this invasion started, and this was not, of course, planned, and one of the most interesting subjects about everything, when Daria Lisenko was here, I think 2 weeks ago in Zagreb, she told some information that I didn't realize till now, that she see like Ukrainian literature one way before invasion and on the other way like after the invasion, and she said some interest point that this number of the magazine is already like past time, because she see like there is some kind of line before this invasion and after. So the day that the magazine came, it was already like old fashion, old text, and for me, I didn't see it before on that way, and it was quite interesting for me also. And of course, we have some kind of initiative and some kind of cooperation with the Ukrainian authors before, and we are going to have also in the new number of the magazine. For me, one of the most interesting texts is going to be one that was translated by Daria Pavleshan from the Philosophical University in Zagreb, and her colleague Domagoj Kliček. It was a text from the author Yevgen Stepanenko, and also his daughter Solomia, and it is a text about letters that Yevgen tried to answer on the letters that her daughter, he is in basic school, and he write to him letters. He was at the first line, even 2014, and she have this kind of idea that she's going to write letters to her father and every letter starts with one letter from the alphabet, and it's like 33 pieces in the book, and we have for this new number of magazine just a few letters. It's going to be a few pages in the magazine, but for me it is quite interesting. Maybe one of the better texts that I read in last few years that is quite interesting for me. So this whole cooperation is going to, of course, going further, and I hope that people in Croatia is going to read Ukrainian authors on the some I don't know how to say good choice, not just like that they see something on the media, so they have some like small interest, but that they are going to go deep in these poems and novel and everything, and that they are going to know Ukrainian culture and literature in some better ways. Yeah.
We will just now connect with try to connect with Alla Tatarenko from Lviv. Just a second.
Bog.
Dobar dan, Alla, čujemo se?
Da, čujemo se.
Super. Hvala lijepo, evo što si tu sa nama, samo da vidim kako ću ovo prebaciti. Evo danas možemo, onda ćemo ovako na hrvatski. Evo, Alla Tatarenko koja je s nama sada tu je naša, evo nekako najbolja spona i najveća spona koju imamo sa prijevodima i prije i hrvatske književnosti, a i srpske i sve književnosti, razne književnosti jugoslavenskih područja, ali sada u zadnje vrijeme preko Alle Tatarenko saznajemo sve što se događa i književnost i nekako i prevodimo, i imamo objavu i evo nam je ona nekako profesorica na sveučilištu u Glavu, prevoditeljica izuzetne energije koja je stvarno daje sve kako bi predstavila svijetu i nama ovdje koji smo nekako povezani književnošću slavenskom, da vidimo šta se događa i to kao i najbolje što je vidjeti što se događa kroz književnost, a naročito kroz poeziju koja je jednostavno najbliže prikazuje sve nekakve stvari ukratko, može zagrabiti u više nekakvih dimenzija ljudske egzistencije i ljudskih patnje, a i opet neke i radosti koja se među ljudima stvara. I tako da ona je pripremila ovu knjigu koja je tu, koju smo sad prije pokazali, koja će uskoro biti u tisku. Znači ukrajinski ljetopis, to je pjesnički ljetopis rata Ukrajina 2022. i koja će biti objavljena u zajedno Hrvatskog PEN-a. Eto, možete da reći nešto kako je sad situacija u Lavovu, jeste sigurno kako je općenito otprilike situacija, reći nešto o tom projektu našem, evo, što si ti pripremila za hrvatske čitatelja i sve druge.
Dobar dan, dragi prijatelji. Veselim se što vas mogu pozdraviti sada, barem ovim putem iz Lvova. Ne znam ima li sigurnih mjesta u Ukrajini dok traje ovaj rat, jer i jutros je Ukrajina bila meta. Dva put se oglašavala zračna opasnost po cijeloj Ukrajini, pa u Lvovu. Još ne znamo rezultate onog drugog napada koji se završio tek prije nekoliko minuta. Znamo da je oboreno 18 raketa iz onog prvog naleta, ali nažalost nisu sve rakete oborene, ima i podjele u tom broju i oblasti zapadne Ukrajine, tako da dio Ukrajine je ostao ponovno bez struje, neki dijelovi bez vode. Eto, mada zapadna Ukrajina naravno izgleda mnogo sigurnija od onih oblasti gdje se vodi najžešći rat, ali ne može se reći da dok traje ovaj napad neko može biti siguran i naravno čak i kad je na sigurnome, a mnogi su Ukrajinci na sigurnome u Hrvatskoj, koliko znam, ali dušom i mislima oni su sa svojim, oni su s Ukrajinom. Dakle, ne bih mogla reći da su oni koji su na sigurnom sigurni. Bićemo sigurni kad se rat završi, jer moramo biti sigurni. Za sada smo sigurni samo u pobjedu dobra. Hvala vama na ovoj mogućnosti da budem ovdje, a prije svega na ovom susretu. Jer Tomica Bajsić i Hrvatski PEN su radili već mnogo i rade sad u ovom trenutku, jer okupljuju ljude u Hrvatskoj i šire oko teme sada krimskih Tatara. Kad govorimo o ukrajinskoj književnosti, moramo govoriti i o ukrajinskoj književnosti koja se stvara krimskim Tatarima na njihovom jeziku i čak ako nam se čini da u ovoj antologiji na kojoj sad predstavljamo o Ukrajini nema mnogo krimskih Tatara, to je tek privid, zato što ih ima. Uvijek ih ima zato što su oni dio Ukrajine, dio ukrajinskog naroda, a u onim pjesmama koje smo uvrstili, a to su pjesme koje su nastale, 99% tih pjesama, to je pjesme koje su nastale za vrijeme rata. Dakle, jednostavno nisam imala uvid, a mogu privoditi samo s ukrajinskog. Biće sigurno ovdje glasova i krimskih Tatara. Ali i ona antologiji, vjerojatno ste već čuli da je antologija od 50 pjesama, 25 pjesnika, ima Krima na jedan volšeban način. Na jedan čaroban način vidljiv i nevidljiv. Evo, znači jednom se spominje nešto krimsko, koliko se mogu sjetiti. Evo, dopustite meni da pročitam te pjesme gdje ima Krima. I naravno u ovoj antologiji ima više pjesama o gubitku doma. Gubitak doma, to je tema koja je jako krimska, zato što svi znamo za užas, za tragediju deportacije koju su doživjeli Tatari i sad u 21. stoljeću oni doživljavaju još jednu tragediju gubitka doma i Ukrajinci su svi Ukrajinci su jako svjesni toga. Eto, kada ukrajinski pjesnici pjevaju o napuštenom domu, oni pjevaju i o stanovnicima Krima i o krimskim Tatarima. Evo jedna od ukrajinskih pjesama, Vrijeme pjesnikinje koja je morala napustiti svoj rodni dom, napustiti Buču. Evo jedna kraća pjesma o gubitku doma. Pjesma broj 15. Žene i djeca iznosili su iz kuća najdragocjenije. Sol u vlastitim očima, krv u vlastitim tijelima, riječi u svojim glavama i škrto dijelili bližnjima krhotene vlastite boli. Škrte krhotene boli dobivali su uzauzvrat od bližnjih. To je pjesma koja spaja sve Ukrajince ma gdje živjeli. A Krim se spominje u pjesmi Viktorije Ameljene koja ima lijep naslov, priča za povratnika. Kad je Mira napuštala kuću, uzela je iz škrinjice jednu perlu. Kad je Tim napuštao grad, podigao je kamenčić na ulici. Kad je Jarka napuštala vrt, ponijela je pošticu marelice. Kad je Vjera napuštala kuću, nije uzela ništa. Vratit ću se uskoro, rekla je, i nije uzela ništa baš. Mira je uzgojila od perle škrinjicu. Uzgaja u škrinjici novi dom. Tim je započeo novi grad od kamena. Grad sliči na njegov rođeni, samo mora nema. Jarka je posadila pošticu marelice. Oko poštice izrastao je njezin vrt. A Vjera, koja nije uzela ništa, priča ovu priču. Kad bježeš od kuće, priča, kuća iza leđa smanjuje se, da se sačuva. Dom se pretvara u sivi kamenčić, perlu, pošticu lanjske marelice, staklić koji vodska dlan cijeloga puta, lego figuricu, školjku s Krima, sjemenku suncokreta, dugme statine uniforme. Dom onda može stati u džep i tamo spavati. Dom treba iz džepa vaditi na sigurnom mjestu. Kad je gotov, dom će polako rasti. I ti nikad, zapamti, nikad nećeš biti bez svoga doma. A što si sa sobom ponijela ti? Ponijela sam jedino ovu priču o povratku. Evo, izvadila sam je na svjetlo. Ona raste. Ova priča raste. Mi u to vjerujemo kao oni koji čuvaju školjku s Krima. Inače, tema krimskih Tatara prisutna je i vidljivo i nevidljivo u ukrajinskoj književnosti s posebnom snagom od 2014. godine, od aneksije Krima. Jedan od pjesnika koji su najzastupljeniji u našoj antologiji s pravom, zato što to zaslužuju, kao svi pjesnici i pjesnikinje koji su tu, to je Sergij Žadan. Sergij Žadan koji je napisao pjesmu posvećenu krimskim Tatarima. Pjesma je bila objavljena u zbirci Tatari još prije početka ovog velikog rusko-ukrajinskog rata i ukrajinska glazbena grupa TNMK, Tanjec na Majdani Kongo, čak je uglazbila ovaj stih, ovu pjesmu i Elvira Sarjehaliju, jedan je od autora glazbenica koja je sudjelovala u pravljenju te pjesme, u stvaranju te pjesme. Imam i link, tako da ćemo možda imati mogućnost poslušati tu pjesmu. Kad sam se spremala za naš susret, otvorila sam tu pjesmu Sergija Žadana, koja je kao mnoge pjesme, u tom broju one koje su ušle u našu antologiju, zvuče kao proroštvo, kao sugestija, kao neka molitva. Imaju svoj veoma jak ritam i imaju veliku energiju. Energiju koja u ovoj pjesmi o građenju domova jer to je jako važno, graditi. Pjesma počinje riječima kako smo gradili svoje domove. Pjesma Sergeja Žadana jeste pravljenje domova od riječi i pjesma u kojoj on daje svoju podršku ljudima koji su gradili i izgubili svoje domove. On vjeruje u njih. Ova pjesma zaslužuje prijevod. Zaslužuje prijevod koji bi dočarao barem donekle, jer teško je dočarati ovako original, ono što je htio dati Sergij Žadan. Ja sam za danas prepričala tu pjesmu na hrvatskim, da kažem kako naša antologija, kao i svaka pjesma, govori više nego što se čini na prvi pogled. Mada ove pjesme ima nekih drugih, koji ću također spomenuti, ali sada ovo je prigoda da kažem što je Žadan rekao o domovima krimskih Tatara. Odmah kažem, to je prepričavanje, nije to još uvijek pjesnički prijevod. Kako smo gradili svoje domove? Kad stojiš pod nebesima zime i nebesa okreću se i plove negdje daleko u nebeski vrt, razumiješ da treba živjeti tamo gdje te ne plaši smrt. Gradi zidove od algi i trava, kopaj vuči jame i volove, navikni se živjeti s drugima dan za danom. Domovina je tamo gdje te razumiju kad u snu progovoriš. Moraš imati mjesto za kojim ćeš žaliti. Voda je vrijedna ako je voda za piti. Ako krivce tražiš ozbiljno, nismo to mi uradili. Cijelog života samo smo svoje domove gradili. Stavljaj kamen uz kamen, gradi svoj dom, na ilovači, na crnici tvrdoj gradi. Izvlači iz džepova zemlje, ugalj i sol. Svatko mora imati krov za pomene mrtvim i slavno. Što bliže suncu, od praznine što dalje, drveće će rasti, djece će rasti. Na listu duvana rosa se rađa. Gradili smo kao da nebesa nadgrađujemo. Kao da unosimo red u visinu. Kao da riječima punimo jezik praznine. Kao da vraćamo imena stvarima. Čaval u čaval, zid u zid, kamen uz kamen. Snažan glas ti je dan za pjevanje. Slab ti je dan za molitvu. Jezik nestaje kad se njime o ljubavi ne govori. Noće nemaju smisla bez tame. Sijaj crno sunce, sijaj nad nama. Ovo je jedna pjesma koja daje poruke, pjesma koja posjeduje snagu, pjesma koju ima želju citirati i izgovarati ovo poput nekih riječi koje daju snagu. Dakle, Sergij Žadan je jedan od onih pjesnika koji daju snagu. I zato u našoj antologiji mi vidimo više pjesama Sergija Žadana. Zanimljivost antologije jeste u tome što ona predstavlja jedan ljetopis. Ljetopis dan za danom, jednu kronologiju doživljavanja rata. Od prvog dana, 24.2. do 24.8. Do dana kad slavimo dan ukrajinske neovisnosti i kako se desilo, bilo pola godine rata. Svaka knjiga ima svoje ograničenje. Zato što jednog dana moramo staviti točku i reći to će biti to za danas. Nažalost, kad je bila stavljena točka na rukopis ove knjige, rat nažalost nije prestao. Ali nisu prestale naše nade, nigdje je prestala naša vjera da hoće. Zato svoj uvod, ovu pjesmu, nazvala sam pjesme Boli i vjere. Ovo su pjesme koje su prikazane kao što jesu kao ljetopis rata. Međutim, na početku ima 3 molitve, jer ukrajinska poezija, ratna poezija, to je veoma metafizička poezija, veoma iskrena, životna, realna, zato možda ima u njoj toliko obraćanja Bogu i toliko vjere. To su 3 molitve, molitva izgrika, napisana prije ratnih događanja, molitva Ljubije Klimčuk, koja je napisana već u vrijeme kad je počeo rusko-ukrajinski rat na Donbasu, i molitva Marijane Savke za Mariupolj, koja je napisana već za vrijeme velike agresije Rusije na Ukrajinu. Međutim, nakon ljetopisa također ima jedna pjesma, Postscriptum. Postscriptum, čiji je autor Sergij Žadan. Ranije, kad sam završila prvu verziju ove antologije, ona je trebala završavati se prvom pjesmom Sergija Žadana, koju je napisao kao pjesmu za vrijeme rata. To je pjesma koja govori o poeziji i počinje ohrabrenjem pjesnicima. Govori o tome da možda zbilja treba početi. Možda upravo sada i treba početi. Ma koliko uvjeravao sebe da nije vrijeme, da ne treba pipajući izgovarati riječi koje tvoj glas ne poznaje. Sa ovom vjerom Sergija Žadana nastavili smo raditi na antologiji, na kojoj sam naiskreno zahvalna Hrvatskom PEN-u, prije svega Tomici Bajsiću, koji je dao tu ideju. I to mi je osobno jako pomoglo. Meni je bilo mnogo lakše živjeti. To su velike riječi, ali u ovoj situaciji, vjerujte mi, to je jedina realnost koju mogu dočarati. Sergij Žadan napisao je pjesmu o izbjeglicama. To, za razliku od mnogih drugih pjesama koje su pisane iz pozicije izbjeglice, teške pjesnikinja koje su morale zbog djece i rodbine otići na bezbjednije mjesta, na sigurnije mjesta u druge zemlje ili na zapad zemlje. Sergij Žadan nije otišao iz Ukrajine, nije otišao iz Harkiva, koji on brani u tom broju i svojim pjesmama. On je napisao pjesmu o onima koji su otišli. Čekaju večer ljudi što sviče na puževe, tako gorko spavaju na kolodvorima, tako duboko. Izlomljene linije granice naljeg je borovoj grani. Put je težak kad nosiš na leđima dom i vlastitu prošlost. Uporni puževi nezaštićene Europe, žene koje su doma ostavile opranu posteljinu, djeca koje ne puštaju majčinu ruku, kao što na kalemljene, na jabuku grane ne puštaju toplo stablo. Nama je potrebno čudo. Nama su potrebni lihopovi nade, dodiri radosti, zraci što probijaju tamo. Što ćeš uzeti, mali pužiću, kad budeš napustio izgorjeli dom? Prije svega, ponićeš vjeru da ćeš se vratiti, svakako. Smireno vrijeme bez umnika i bjegunaca. Vatrena vjera onih što su izašli na kolodvoru progonstva. Uvijek se sjećati rasporeda namještaje u očevoj kući. Kriti u džepu ključeve kao osušeni cvijet. Baš ovaj put je sada obilježen bezglasjem. Noćenja ova su putnička, između tišine i kiše. Budite hrabri u želji. Budite dostojni ovoga puta. Vi ste lišeni doma, ali niste lišeni srca. To je jedna od pjesama koje završavaju antologiju, a na kraju je postskriptum, ali sad neću čitati postskriptum jer mora biti nešto što čuvamo kao iznenađenje. Pjesma koja je prva bila prevedena, dakle od postskriptuma, od kraja sam počela, zapravo zato što ova naša antologija nema kraja. Nadam se da će uskoro rat stati, ali prevođenje ukrajinske poezije u Hrvatskoj neće. Jer meni se čini da ova antologija otvorit će još jedna vrata, koje se sada otvaraju u Hrvatskoj, jer beskrajno sam zahvalna Hrvatskoj i hrvatskim kolegama na svemu što čine za Ukrajinu, Ukrajince, u tom broju otvarajući svoju dušu i za ukrajinsku književnost i za ukrajinsku poeziju. A mi ćemo naravno prevoditi i hrvatsku poeziju, jer ona zavređuje. Nadam se da ćemo imati takvu mogućnost, a vjerujem da će izdavači prihvatiti ovo raširenih ruku kao što su to radili i ranije. I da ćemo pjevati o vjeri, nadi, ali i o ljubavi. Jer što nam drugo preostaje nego vjera, nada i ljubav. Hvala vama puno.
Puno ti hvala, Alla. Čim dođeš u Zagreb, ja se nadam to će biti uskoro, mi ćemo predstaviti tu knjigu koja je sad pred tiskom i evo, onda ćemo se vidjeti, još ćemo pričati, evo, puno ti hvala što si sa nama podijelila svoje vrijeme i što smo saznali i više isto i o književnosti krimskih Tatara i kako je to dio ukrajinske kulture. Hvala ti još jednom.
Hvala Tomice, veliki pozdrav Zagrebu i hvala na svemu. Hvala.
Also, Alim, so we now heard a lot about Alla is a professor on the university in Lvov, and she spoke also about literature and the culture of Crimean Tatars, and about some of the poetry in this book that will speak about it, and about Sergei Jalan poetry and Victoria Amelina and so.
Yeah, and I want to add that Alla mentioned and read the text by Sergei Jadan, and it was a text that was included into the first anthology of Crimea FIC. It's a Ukrainian Crimean Tatar anthology that new texts about poetry, prose, translations, and also we have one special category that have a name, words of freedom. It's a category for political prisoners, for poets and writers, for authors who send their own texts from places of detention to us, and we publish these texts. And the song after with Tanok na Maidani Congo and Elvira Serhalil, we produced this song a year ago. Not even a year ago, it was beginning of February this year in Kiev, because for us it's very important to give a variety of forms to literature, to talk by language of art, about human rights violations, about the situation in occupied territories. And I just want to tell two stories of such people. One of the stories is the story of my good friend. Sorry, it was a lot of coffee. My good friend Nariman Jalal. 15 years ago, we started together with him in Crimean Tatar newspaper Avdet. We together was a journalists, and Nariman, my good friend, with him we can talk dozens of hours about everything. And last 8 years, Nariman was most loudly voice of free Crimea people in the peninsula. He is the first deputy head of Majlis of Crimean Tatar people. And 1 year ago, when Crimean platform was started in Kiev, it was a huge event. A lot of presidents, prime ministers, speakers of parliaments of different countries come to Kiev. And Nariman was one of the speakers from Crimea. And when he back to Crimea, Russian security officials detained him over so-called explosion near gas pipeline in Crimea, and it was a very really crazy case when Nariman Jalal, very intellectual, he's public intellectual of Crimean Tatar, one of the leaders of Crimean Tatars, and Russian authorities says that he made this explosion on gas pipeline, and he was handcuffed and had a bag on his head for almost 24 hours, and it was of course violations. And now he in a prison. And Nariman, in this book, in this second anthology, he was one of the authors of one of the texts. One more case, it's about Irina Danilovich, and I am a member of PEN Ukraine, and in our PEN community we have such projects that say the ambassadors of political prisoners. I'm ambassador of Irina Danilovich. She's a journalist and activist, but first of all she's a doctor. She's a Crimean doctor. Last few years, she just writes blogs and posts about the medical system of Crimea. And in the May of this year, she was kidnapped by Russian forces, and after that, they say that she had a bomb, and it's one more crazy story from Peninsula, that in her lady bag she had a bomb, and that's why now she in a prison now. And such story, we have dozens of such stories, yeah, and we have dozens such stories now in different corners of Ukraine. But also we have a huge resistance of Ukrainian people, and you know, today a lot of my friends, they are all in Ukraine army, or like me, we are also volunteering, because we have another choice. You even or in army, or you're volunteering and helping for civilians, for your army to fight. Yeah, because it's existential fight and war for us.
Thank you, Alim. So we heard some of it when we met, like it was in August in Uzhhorod, and there was also the stories about the writers that are imprisoned, the journalists that are imprisoned, and also we visited the places, stations for the children that are from the occupied territories, or from the territories under the shelling. They came, and then so many volunteers, and we witnessed the energy and the bravery of all these organizations, including the PEN and all other organizations, especially PEN colleagues also that have invited us to Uzhhorod to see on the helping these children and that were and even sick children. And so what I just remember the most is that people who were looking after the children that were sick and from the occupied territories, they said that they fear the winter because they don't have for the heating, and they built the house, they have created space and everything. So it is that something that you do, but it is, we admire your courage and your resistance, and to what you do for helping all these people. But it's also, it needs, we saw that it needs, all of you, that you have to push your over the limits, to push over the limits, to try to keep up the normal life and to do whatever you can. So I think that is U.S. Ukraine PEN. What I said also now on there was this Congress said it is like a lighthouse for some PENs. How do you manage it? How do you for other PENs? So how do you manage these circumstances that are under the threats of life, that you manage to hold on and to do all that you do. And so that's what I wanted to say. And maybe Siniša, would you like to something to say about some future ideas, maybe for with the Ukraine? You had some Ukrainian authors here, and so what do you prepare, maybe?
Yeah, so I was saying that we are preparing the next number of this alternative magazine. We are actually quite done. It just depends about my time that I put all text together, and I think that we are going to be able to go to the print office maybe in the next few weeks. And maybe one of conclusion for me, I read I don't know, a few days ago, one of the line, well known, like when the guns start talking, then the inspiration or the muse like shut down. But I think that in this situation, in this invasion, this war in Ukraine, it's quite opposite, because many of the authors, many of the poems and novelists actually start to write more than maybe that they usually write, and I think it was quite good like a wind for them to have to give some new courage to the soldier on the lines, and to all the nation, to all the people, and that I think that they really give quite a big wind to all the country, and for all this fight. And I think that is something maybe even in this old line, I don't know from what century exactly, but I think now is the opposite, because the guns of course talk, but also the writers talk even more than the guns. That is something that I have a possibility to notice. Yeah.
Writers have bigger mouths than guns.
Yeah, but a lot of writers now in eastern part of southern part in Ukraine army also, and now it was very interesting for me myself. Previous Monday, it was a lot of bombs in Kiev, and it's our new normality. When you just sitting at home and counting these bombs and just working, and after you said it with your friends, and a lot of people now living in the situation when you need an act, and that's why, for example, volunteering organizations, grassroots organizations we have in every single small city or even village. And when we say it about this mass resistance, it's about it. When people don't wait when someone comes and said what to do. People just gathering together and doing small local but very useful activities in their areas.
Excuse me, could I ask you a question? When you write, do you write in Tatar language?
Yeah, I know Crimean Tatar language, and
You write on it.
mostly I'm writing on Ukrainian language, but also I can write in Crimean Tatar language. Yeah.
Do you have anything that you can read? I have never heard Tatar language in my life.
I can read. Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah. It's a text of famous Crimean Tatar poetry Seri Kokche. Çapalana yüreğim çağaldı, dağlarının üstünde korlarınıp ağlay. Yarma yarçık kalbime ilaç diye, tamçı tamçı tuzlu suf tamlaptıya. Acı yelden kanatlar korçalanmay, vatanımның vücudu korlanıp ağlay. Kara bulutlar Kırım'ını kaplap ala, gözge görünmek cenk devanlama. Nice yıllar, asırlar sanki etmey, bitmey iç adetimiz halkım inley. Acayip yeşilada dörtke bata, dayan tekaran halkım, tanlar atar. Nice yıllar, asırlar olur artık. Bizge de gelir bar ve azatlık. Rahatlık korer kartlar, nesil güller. Olur yarık geceler, bahtlı günler. Tek yok olma milletim, düşman köler. Çapalana yüreğim çağaltay. Dağlarının üstünde hırlanıp ağlay. Yarma yarçık kalbime ilaç diye. Tamçı tamçı tuzlu suf tamlaptıya. This text is about current situation in Crimea, about occupation, and for example, just one sentence. We are waiting our spring and we are waiting our freedom. It's one of the sentence of this text. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we have to close this event. The library also asked not to be too long. So we are now soon to close. But I think that we have heard a lot this time. Welcome to Zagreb, and I hope we see each other again. We publish more of the Crimean Tatars literature in our magazines, or maybe in a book, or display is also very, very interesting. And I would thank you again for being with us here. Hvala svima vama. Thank you all that have been here on this Saturday. Hvala Siniša. Eto, molim još jedan pljesak za našeg gosta.
Slava Ukrajini!